So just to start, what was it that's brought you to run for board?
I've had a lot of great experiences from the Clubs and Societies program, and I thought that through that experience, I wanted to make sure that every other university student could benefit from the USU like I had.
Mm-hmm.
And Clubs and Societies is one program of the USU, and I know that, but I really think that I'll be able to help take my experience and allow the students to have it too.
And just as a general question we're asking all the candidates, are you aligned with any political parties or factions on campus?
I'm not active in any political parties. I may be a member of the late ALP club on campus. I'm not too sure if I signed up on early or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just as a follow-up, how would you describe broadly your political views?
I generally vote based on policies.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Cool.
But generally, yeah.
Sure. Alright, so in the batch of candidates running, how would you rank your preferences first, second and last?
I haven't really thought about that that much yet. No one's approached me.
Mm-hmm.
My team we've had a little bit of thought about who we think is the top kind of runners and whatnot, but we haven't approached anyone to do preferences.
Cool.
Yeah, there's people who I like, their policies.
Yeah, do you want to speak to that? Yeah.
I think most candidates this year actually have at least one policy that I like. And yeah, I think
specific one?
Atia has quite a strong policies, and so does Michael as well. Yeah. Cool.
I mean, this is like an optimistic question as well. If you were to be elected, who do you think you would be voting for president if you had to?
Do we have a definitive who's actually winning the position yet?
There's been talk that it might be contested between people like Alicia Aiken Radburn, Ed McMahon and Olivia Ronan.
I would have to talk to each of them personally and base my preferences on what they say to me.
So 2 Senate-appointed directors sit on the board along with the student directors. And in the past, directors have said things like, we would never seek votes from Senate-appointed directors, only to then renege on that a year later when they're vying for exec positions. So if you were elected, would you or would you not seek the votes of Senate-appointed directors for an executive position?
For my own personal
for your own position?
I'm not too sure. With the Senate-appointed people, I understand why they're there. I think that they should probably have a vote, but I'm still not too sure on how I really feel about it. I didn't realise there's such a previous track record of reneging on saying that they wouldn't and then going in. Power does that to people. So, yeah. Cool.
Alright, so can you take us through a specific policy that you're most proud of and most determined to see implemented where you were elected?
Yep. I really think the CNS program should be looked at as a success so far, and it should be increased, and also programs like it should be made. So things that, not like it, but they would have a similar result on the culture of the City University culture. So with clubs and societies, I have a few things that I think that should be looked at. The first one is incentives for clubs and societies running events before 12 o'clock, to make sure that there is something active on campus from the morning to the night time. And at the moment, most events are held from midday onwards. And I think some sort of maybe monetary incentive, so maybe more funding for events that are held earlier in the day. Yep. Also, I think humanitarian-wise, that there should be a system in place for humanitarian societies or other societies that want to apply for, say, a big fundraising event where the USU will match the money raised to X amount. And another thing is, I think in general, there could be the potential to increase funding for clubs and societies in general. Yeah.
So your policies are mostly around funding. Can you take us through what you would take that funding from?
I looked at the 2013 financial report. There hasn't been 2014 one released yet.
Yeah, the doesn't get released for another couple of months.
Yeah, so based on that, the position that the current executive have been in, they seem to have picked up. They haven't been in much turmoil financially at all. They have actually got, I think this year they secured a bit more of the amenity money as well. So it would just be, I'd actually have to look at what's happening what they've spent on this year, or over their term, last year and this year, and see where money could be taken away, what programs are working, what programs aren't. That's a big thing. Yeah.
So you've talked about CNS as something that you think is like a success. Do you think are there any sort of failures of the current board or the board previously that you can point to as something failures or shortcomings or things that should be improved or changed?
Something that you mentioned earlier about that sort of previous members getting up and then saying that they wouldn't take those votes, and they do. The similar thing as well with transparency I've noticed is that everyone cries transparency, like we want transparency, but then you look at the minutes from the last meeting they had, and within it people were saying that certain issues to do with actions of members shouldn't have been made public. And then we have the whole thing from last year with Tom as well.
That's all right.
And there's things like that where it's like everyone says transparency, but when it gets to the point of it, when it comes to like, and when something happens, everyone goes, oh no, actually it's going to look bad for us, so let's not make it transparent. That's something that I've noticed and very interested in.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So.
Probably a big part of the transparency issue are the duties that you would owe to the board as a director. Can you take us through when you think it would be appropriate to breach those duties for, say, a cause you believed in or the greater good?
I can't see a circumstance like that happening if I was on board. I'd really couldn't see that actually happening in general.
Cool.
So I can't theorise on it.
Yeah.
Speculate.
Cool. So this is just a question about sort of the board's relationship, the USU's relationship to other places on campus.
Oh yeah.
What do you think which institution do you think is more important for student welfare? Is it the USU or is it something like the SRC? Okay.
The way I view the two, and the way what I've read about them, is that the SRC acts more in the interests of students in general. So fighting for rights for students, like class sizes, fighting for conditions, those sort of things. Whereas the USU seems like they're there to enable that to happen. They're there to direct funds in areas in which will not only create a better campus culture, but also a more inclusive culture, and to like embrace things like the SRC and other factions like that. So there's one's more to do with students directly, and the other one is more of an enabler, which is the USU.
So you've talked about inclusivity a bit.
Yes.
Do you think the USU has a role in terms of sort of preventing societies or clubs coming into a fact that would be not inclusive for all members? So for example, like the big examples, like when the union board came in and stopped BroSoc from happening. Yeah,
that's a very interesting case. I remember reading about it at the time. It's kind of gone from my memory a little bit. I believe that they were knocked back, and they were a society based upon mental health for males. The fact that it was just for men, especially, is a big thing in terms of it probably not being able to become a society. There is already a mental health society, I believe, on campus. So with that, there's obviously rules and regulations. Anyone who's read How to Create a Club or Society knows that you have to actually fill a niche that hasn't already been filled by another club, and if you are overlapping, you then need to ask permission from that society, just like, say, Pokemon Society and SUTEC, or other things like that. Or if I was trying to run a Lord of the Rings Society, I'd have to probably ask SUTEC for permission. So on that basis, that's why I probably got knocked back for one reason, and there's the other one where it's just promoting male mental health. It's an interesting topic in general, the whole thing, because male mental health is also a huge issue that's passionate to me. And I think what that society should have done is thought more about how they wanted to do the society, how it could be more inclusive, and also seek other avenues to help men on campus with mental health issues through collaborations with other clubs and societies that already exist.
Cool.
So obviously the job of a board director is a lot of administration work and bureaucracy. You've identified experiences in clubs and societies that you have, but in terms of the practical background in the kind of administrative roles you'd be required to do. What experience do you have there?
As in being on a board?
Managing budgets,
things
running
like
that kind of thing.
I've run events through Rotaract in this state, so I've had kind of experience doing things like that. Also through my club itself, on a much smaller scale. I think going to board as well is a huge learning opportunity. So I don't know if we wanted to have professional board members, then we wouldn't be looking for students. So this is not only is this an opportunity for students to learn, it's an opportunity for them to also to really demonstrate what skills they've got from access, so like from the USU already. So I see clubs and societies as a stepping stone for going to the union board. Yeah.
Cool. And so this year the USU's introduced a number of new equity measures that are extending free access cards to students of a low SES background.
Yeah. Is that going through?
Yeah, it's going through. Do you think that's a successful measure? And then the second half of the question is, what do you think is the sustained benefit of an access card for low SES students?
So I don't know much about this issue. Sorry, so I don't think I can really comment on it without seeming like being.
Can you comment more broadly on equity for students?
For students?
Low SES students. Okay.
I think potentially access in general should maybe be lowered. Also price-wise, but I'm not too sure about how financially how it would work out at the end of the day. Because I know that access clubs and societies gets all their money, majority of their money from the actual clubs and societies program, so through direct access sales. Yeah. But saying that, you look at campuses like Cumberland, and you go, why do so many people not have access cards there? All right, and this is kind of going off topic a little bit, but in general, access cards should be more universally available to people. And I don't know if it's a price issue. I don't know if it's about the benefits involved. I think benefits is a big thing, and so is price. But there should definitely have been a bigger push in the past, because now Cumberland's coming over to university, like to the main campus, in a couple of years. But there's still 2 other satellite campuses that would benefit from a bigger access push, because it's just, why should our campus be the only one that benefits from such a wonderful program?
So you mentioned Cumbo in there as well, and if you were on board, you'd be sitting on the board for the 2 years in advance of Cumberland students coming to main campus. What do you think would be the most relevant reforms needed by the board in advance of that to make this campus as welcoming to those students as possible?
I think that they should have already started. I think this year they should have worked in the last couple of years to actually increase membership in Cumberland already, so people knew about the benefits there. The Student Guild does quite a good job, I guess, over there, but they don't have the funding or the ability that, say, the Clubs and Society program or the USU has here, right? Because it's just another program of the USU. So with Cumberland, they should have already got, say, deals, discounts, privileges over in Cumberland, and maybe areas like, so we have a small radius of discounts we can get around this area. They should have done something similar for maybe Cumberland, or for where a lot of the students come from in Cumberland, or where they sit in hubs outside of the inner west. And so then when those students have their access cards and they're able to have a similar sort of clubs and society program there, which they do, but they rely mainly, from my understanding, on corporate sponsorships and things like that, rather than on actually being able to run an event that we can do here very easily. Like I've been in a society that we've actually run an event down at Cumberland campus, and it was quite fun. It was good, and the students there seem like they want that happening. So what they should have done was already gone down there, promoted and given benefits for access to Cumberland students, right? Maybe a decreased access card cost. And that should be the same for other satellite campuses. So, and then when Cumberland comes here, they'll be like, wow, clubs and societies, it's great, very different culture, and they'll be able to participate to their fullest. Now they're going to come in waves, and they're going to know about it. We're going to have to rely on O Week to be the big selling point to them, assuming that they come to O Week. If they haven't, because if you're like a second, third year, you might not bother coming to O Week. You've already been at Cumberland for a year. So, I think it's one of the big failures of the USU over the last few years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I was going to then just ask, what do you see the role of the board? So we've talked about the board a lot as a service provider. What do you think the board's role in activist space? So like in previous years we've seen the board both operate as a service provider through CNS and also as like an activist body through like its involvement in like establishing autonomous ethno-cultural spaces, or through things like radical sex and consent day, that sort of thing?
I think on the greater awareness level, USU should be active. So like for creating days and awareness events. I think for spaces, probably the SRC we should be giving them more ability to create the spaces themselves, with our help, obviously. But with the USU and the whole point, we want to create a culture that's inclusive and that everyone feels okay in. And that's something that I really want on campus is to stop this sort of division that I see when I'm walking down, between faculties especially. We should all be happy that we're at University of Sydney and it's a good institution. Like, it should be more than just, we should be happy to be here, not just because of the brand name, but because of the culture that's on campus. And not just there should be opportunities for everyone, from political activists to people who are campaigning for, I guess, sexuality or for race, but also for people who just, I don't know, want to do other things as well.
Yeah.
Who aren't like big in like the kind of the activism scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Practically, what do you think the effect of that is though, when you've got, say, like individual board directors coming out in support of rallies or that sort of thing? Like, for example, just with last year's election, on the first day of voting, there was a education rally held, and all the candidates, or the majority of candidates, agreed on a ceasefire so they could take part in the rally. What do you think of stuff like that?
It's a tough issue. Well, everything they do as a board member reflects on the board itself. So by them doing that, is the union itself endorsing it? Can you separate the person from the position? And that's something that I think the board should probably look at, and also maybe ask students what they think too. If someone, I guess most people would vote for the candidate that has similar, I guess, maybe political preferences to them, or similar interests. So they'll probably be like, I'm very happy for that person to go into that rally. However, if they might, I'm not too sure actually. I'm really not too sure how that would deal with it. I would think that you should be able to separate the two. And if they do attend things like that, they should be attending as their individual, not as a board member. So not in any official capacity, unless the board agrees on it. So if the board came to an agreement saying we're all going to go to this rally, If not, then they should be in their own personal sphere.
So then, I was just going to jump onto just the section of the quiz that's broadly based about ethics and ethical challenges faced by the board previously. Do you think it's appropriate to discuss issues like CEO remuneration in camera?
What do you mean? As in disclosing how much people...
Yeah, so stuff like when the board is negotiating the rate of pay for the CEO, they go into in-camera, which is where they kick everyone out, and it's not minuted. So do you think it's appropriate to discuss that stuff privately?
So you're saying, should it be open?
Yeah, should it be open?
Well, they should be declared on the budgets at the end of it, for sure.
Do you mean the minutes of what was said, or...?
Well, I think that wouldn't the people's pay be put into the budgets? Into the financial statements?
It would most likely be in the audit, but as you've seen, there's quite a large lag between the time in which a salary is declared and the time in which it's audited, which is usually...
Well, it should be public knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah, just like how the pay for USU members and their benefits should be better known too.
So I guess a follow-up to that is, would you support the full divergence for all financials?
I would.
Of all?
Yeah, 100%. It's student money. Why wouldn't students be able to see what it's spent on?
And I guess follow-up to that is, do you think in that case that the board went far enough in censoring Carrigan and Magyar in the recent
cap charge thing? I think that how they handled it by reading the minutes, it seems like they did the right thing. Yeah.
The board did the
right thing. Yeah. Yeah, it seems like it was appropriate.
Cool.
The thing I found interesting was that seemed like there was a push to go into the previous year's worth of the previous board's worth of cap charges to see if everyone would be kind of indicted would be caught out, which I think was an interesting notion to actually raise. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So we opened up questions generally to just our readership, and people were able to submit them online. So we've got a few general ones here. This one's to all candidates. If you were elected to the board, what improvements would you do for USU democracy generally? And this question specifies voting, but you can take it in whichever direction you like.
So the first thing I would do would be the cap that each candidate has would be the amount that they can claim from the USU right now. So it's $500, right? The cap's actually $700, so you get $500 from. You can claim up to $500 from the USU for your campaign. But the cap's $700. So what that does, there's a $200 difference. So candidates who don't have an extra $200 potentially can't run a campaign as financially as successful as a $700 campaign.
How much difference do you think that would make in terms of access in ability to
run?
Well,
I think to run, I'm not too sure. I don't know if that's a big issue for people, because I don't think a lot of people realise, unless you get into wanting to run for USU, nobody really bothers to read the process, right? They don't read all the forms and the guides. So I just think that for the people who would go and they would look at it, or they're taking that first step, and they go, oh, okay, look, how do I run? How do I fund this campaign? How do I buy A-frames and how do I get chalk and all this sort of things and T-shirts? They look at it and they go, oh, okay, $500. I can get $500, perfect. And they look down, they go, oh, $700 cap. So where's that other $200 come from? And then you realise, you do the first. Everyone, you get to see whoever buys T-shirts, right? You get to see how much they ordered, and you see a few people already ordered over $500 worth of T-shirts. You go, whoa, I can't compete with that level of. How are they going to buy everything else? So it's a bit confronting. And if everyone's on an equal level, if it was all just the amount of money you could get from the USU, then I think it would be more of a fair playing field. With voting, I think they did a really good thing. The last, the current board, where they made sure that the current board members can't officially endorse the new candidates. I think that was a really good step of trying to make it more of a level playing field, especially because the big political factions on campus, they've already got a lot of connections and people involved. So, and having that extra level of support by a current USU staff member or USU board member would be a lot. With voting itself, I think that there should be mail voting. I think for satellite campuses. I also think that places like Cumberland probably should have, because I understand they've got a student guild. I don't understand why they don't have voting booths down there, personally.
Yeah, the student guild's an independent body of...
But they're still university of senior students, and some of them might still have access cards. So it's I don't understand why we would, why they have to come here to vote, you know what I mean? The same. It's good that we have at least one day each of the other two satellite campuses. Yeah.
Cool. And then this is just another question from the readers, which is, in what specific way will you increase international student involvement, seeing as they make up a large but underrepresented demographic in university leadership factions?
I was actually trying to find out if they get an access card for free. Do they? I'm not too sure.
No.
They don't? So I actually think because I know colleges, if you go to college, you get an access card, right? I think international students, for the fees that they pay, they should actually probably get an access card included with their study here. And then that would, I think, be the first hurdle overcome. If every international student had an access card, then they would all be able to participate in clubs and societies, which means that hopefully, you would be able to have more cohesion between everyone on campus. I think that's what I would be looking into, because I couldn't find anywhere if they did or didn't get access cards straight away. I definitely think they should.
Cool.
Yeah.
Do you have any more?
Actually, I have a question for you guys.
Yep.
Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah. Look, I was reading your paper. Yeah, and I saw this on it.
Yeah.
Joke candidate. And I was just wondering, is that what you guys think of me?
Well, it's quite important that candidates turn up to things like the quiz and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so
I know.
It makes it hard to assess.
Well, I thought I might be doing the quiz today, but I was just
do it.
wondering.
Would you like to do the quiz? We can do
the
it now.
quiz right now?
Yeah.
Well, it's I don't know, did you guys come up to me beforehand or anything and go hey, are you running? No, I didn't get any contact.
But I mean, you can see in the context of the page, it's
I
like
get
a
it.
satire page,
Yeah,
right?
of course,
like
of course. But
it's like it's the sort of the joke part at the start of the campaign, and
I
then
get
it
it.
changes the tone afterwards,
I get it,
right?
but like, it's just as well. Like, if you think about it, you guys maybe should like, I don't know, approach me, be like, hey, are you actually a joke or not beforehand?
Sure.
Because this was done quite early, and I know I'm not a big player. I know I don't have like a political faction or a huge club in society behind me, but like, I just feel there's a bit of like I don't know, like
No, okay, that's fair enough.
a joke, and you know, the way you're very lovely, all of you here, but it's like, you know, I rock up today. Oh, I didn't know you were coming. You know?
Yeah, well...
It's like, I don't know. I know how I feel about it.
Okay. I mean, like, if it's any consolation, we did not hold back on any of the other candidates. Like, I'm sure you can see on there, like...
I get it. But see, all of these are still kind of like, I don't know, it's just joke candidate. Yeah.
Do you actually want to do the quiz now, though?
Right now? On camera?
You don't have to do it.
No, you can do it.
Okay. Do you have time to do it, or do you have to run off?